Good morning, YouTube. Straight out of bed, straight to working on cars this morning. That's what I like to do. So, recap on this one. It was cutting out what I thought was cut out under boost, but come to find out it was cut out at a certain RPM, which was caused by my LNC 2000, which is my two-step / timing retard box. So we took that off there. I couldn't get it to work. I tried some of the troubleshooting techniques and that didn't seem to work. And then I tried to tune on it some with both pumps running in the surge tank, which made it impossible to get idle and low RPM AFR correct. Because I mean, the table just looked wonky. It was real small down low, and it still was too fat. The table was real small down low and real high up top, which just looked wonky. So to fix that, we're going to get a Hobbs switch to ground out that second fuel pump in the surge tank once the car reaches a certain amount of boost, and then I'm going to do some rewiring in the trunk for it's getting a little bit of voltage loss to the pumps, which isn't a big deal, but why not? But today we're going to be working on the Trans Am. Since we're waiting on parts for that, I ordered the parts for it. We're going to be working on the Trans Am. As y'all can see right here, let me turn the light on so it pop down. As y'all can see right here, this turbo drain. Chris found this plate that bolts to the where the mechanical fuel pump would normally go, and that fitting is right at the top. If that was down at the bottom of that plate, that would be perfect, but instead it's at the top of the plate, which is terrible. Maybe there's a reason it's like that, because I think the drain hole might be higher than if you was to put it at the bottom of the hole. The drain hole's up. That chicken's going crazy. But anyway, as you can see, it's barely downhill, and it backs up oil in the turbo and causes the car to smoke something awful. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the oil pan off of it and find a good spot, like right behind the starter. I don't know if y'all can see the starter. Yeah, right behind the starter on the side of the oil pan, to bring it down further so that don't happen. And also, I found out there's a transmission leak yesterday somewhere, so I got to figure that out. And then these 4 9-inch axles leak, so we're going to use I was watching the Jimmy Dale YouTube channel, and he said he pulled them out and put some of this stuff around the sill, the sill's on the bearing, around the sill part, slid them back in, let it dry, clean it up real good before you do it and stuff. So we're going to try that and see if we can't get that rear end leak out of it. It's funny, the rear end leaks, and it leaks pretty good, but every time I check the fluid in it, the fluid's right where it should be. Confusing. Time to do some sketchy shit, dude. Yeah, getting this thing up in the air on boards and floor jack isn't the funnest thing in the world. His has a lot of more suspension travel, so it's a little bit harder, but we got her up there and about to lay her back down on these homemade jack stands, which I love, and they work great. Been doing it for years, no problems. Oddly enough, this thing sat all night. There ain't a transmission leak. Maybe it's a really slow one. I know when it was parked over there, it definitely leaked. But anyway, thought I'd mention that. I don't see no transmission fluid down there. Alright, let's go ahead and drain the oil out of it. Since it's jacked up at an angle, see what that looks like. Hopefully that cross member and oil pan are separated enough that I can get the oil pan off without dropping, without having to raise the motor up. I think it should, but we'll see. Alright, there we go. Looks like oil to me. We had a problem with the head studs. Boy, I can smell some alcohol in it a little. It was running fat. I can smell the alcohol. But we had a problem with the head studs wanting to leak coolant into the oil. I think that's fixed, but it was running fat, so there's some E85 in there. You can smell it. That's why it's a little miscolored. But yeah. We'll get that all drained out of there. And then I'll go ahead and probably jack the rear end up just to give me a little bit more room to work under here. So there was one little spot. It looked like it leaked fluid. It looks like it's leaking from the overflow. I don't know. Well, no, it's leaking. It looks like it's leaking from there. The two-step. But we'll figure it out once we get it all whipped in there and everything. We'll get the oil drained. I don't see no shiny stuff in there. I'm kind of excited to see what the bottom of the pan looks like. But before we take the pan off, we gotta figure out about where we want to put our fitting at. So we'll have to mark an area, and then once I get the pan off, I'm gonna put 7 quarts in it, because you want it to make sure that it's above the oil line. Alright, let's go ahead and get the rear end up in there. We're going to use jack stands back here because we got to take the tires and axles off. But usually, yeah, you can see a little right there. Usually you'll see on, I don't know if you guys ever noticed on some of the past videos, I'll be down here and there'll be something down the tire. Someone had mentioned one time, hey, you got brake fluid leak. It's not brake fluid, it's rear end differential fluid. But yeah, it don't look like it leaked it. No, it is. Yeah, see up there in the corner between the shock and the brake line. That's where it has to set a while before it leaks. I mean, it don't, like, it only set a knot in here, so you don't even really see anything. I think I see a little bit there, but hard to see. There's none on the other side. But after it sets a while, it does make a little line of fluid down the tire, and I'll show you all that later. But let's go ahead and get this jacked up and get some jack stands in here. All right, let's start ripping this pan off here. But first, let's drain this transmission catch can and try to figure out the best place to put that oil drain. We're going to have to mark a big area and then figure out where the oil level's at, and then pick the area where the oil not in, something like that. Curious how much comes out of here. There's a little in there. I think that's good enough. I want to see how long it
I think Christopher wants to see how long that drains. There's a little bit more in there than I thought there would be. That comes from the overflow. There's a hole on the top of the transmission. It usually just sticks out when yeah, it'll overflow out that. But I got it to where it, instead of overflowing and getting on the track, it comes down to this nifty little catch can. There's a little bit more in there than I thought there should be. It's still draining. And when you recycle your oil, the oil and transmission fluid go in the same bucket. So, you know, I didn't know that for the longest time. I thought you had to keep the oil and transmission fluid separate, but nope. They all go in the same recycle drum when you take them down. And I go to the local parts store, and they got a big one. It's a big square metal container you pour them in. But yeah, all the fluid goes in there. Power steering fluid, hydraulic fluid, transmission fluid, oil. I just pour it all together. Well, that's still draining pretty steady. If we can get it to drain faster. Oh, as far as it goes. Well, I bet that thing was full. Wow. I have to do some research and figure out why so much went in there. If anybody knows, hit the comments. Because, I mean, when I tried to start the car, we parked it on the side of the carport there. I started up to drive it around and put it in here, and it would move in reverse, but it wouldn't move in drive. And I put 1/4 of transmission fluid in it, and then I could actually drive it. It actually went into gear and would move then, but it was so low it wouldn't move. And that's still draining. You guys are like, this is boring. Probably. We'll screw this back in anyway. At least put it in the hole so we don't lose it. I drained that too. I drained that before. I drained it the last time I changed the oil, which is before we went racing that weekend. So really it's only been raced that one weekend. That's how much fluid got in there. I should have caught that and measured how much was in there. I mean, it's a slow stream, but I bet you it was pretty full. I mean, it ain't even stopped yet. It's about to. The trickle's starting to, it's not a full trickle now. I mean, it's not a steady stream now. It's starting to launch a trickle, so it's almost getting there. Yeah, I ain't gonna bore y'all with that no more. I'll let that drain out there. That was pretty much full. I might figure out why it's doing that. Alright, it's still dripping, but it quit streaming about a minute after I shut the camera off. So let's get up in here. I'd say there's about a half quart in it if I had to guess. I got some of these fittings, and let's try to get a idea of an angle of attack for our line to figure out about where I got a marker to mark it, where to put the fitting at. So on this 90 degree, He could probably go anywhere. You gotta think. Oh, line's in my way. Just trying to show you the distance between here and there. You gotta think the fitting's gonna stick out some. And this ain't gonna screw all the way on, but this 90, it would go anywhere in here. You gotta think we're probably gonna go up through that way or under the motor mount. Either one we could do. But yeah. So it's gotta be at least this far back. And we'll figure out where the oil level's at. But this 90 could go anywhere between here to here. And between this bolt and this bolt. Now, the 45 is a different story. 45 ain't gonna go up that high. If we wanted to get a 45, there's a little ledge on this pan right here. I know you guys are upside down, but it's just the way I'm laying. And that is as high as we would want to go for a 45-degree angle. I don't know if I don't think we'll use a 45 here, because that would have us pointing towards the cross member. So definitely would probably use a 90. So the 90 can go anywhere between here and here. So probably right there would be a good shot. But again, we have to figure out how much. This is 7-quart pan, but we put 8 quarts in it. We have to figure out how much fluid holds in here, but we'll remember that the 90 can go anywhere, and that's what we're going to use. We're going to use a 90, and we'll probably go right out that way right there, right under the motor mount. But let's take his pan off. Hopefully it clears the cross member. If it don't, we're going to be screwed, because I don't think I can get that big old cherry picker in here with the car in here. There's not enough room on the sides to pull it in here, but let's see. But you start taking this out, there's the 4 big bolts on each corner, and then the smaller bolts. I'm just going to go through and break them all loose, and then we'll start taking them out. Alright, I got all the bolts out of the pan. Something I did notice though, the oil drain's right here. There's way less crap over here, and it could go straight down right there. So I'm gonna put it on this side of the pan. It'll be way easier, and it'll be a straight shot downhill. But I'm gonna fiddle with it a little bit more, but I don't think the pan's gonna come out without raising the motor up some. So we're gonna have to try to get that engine lift in here somehow. Some way, and that's a heavy one. And get it in here and take motor mount bolts out and jack it up a little bit. Well, I took the 2 front studs out of the pan because it kept getting stuck on those. Just the nut came off those studs. But those studs come out, so went and took those out. Took the dipstick out because see how far that sticks down in there? It still wouldn't come out. But ta-da! I did get the engine hoist in here. So I guess we'll bolt it to the front of the heads, and take the motor mounts out and jack it up a little. I think everything will go up with it, and everything that don't will have enough flex to go up with it. But we'll keep an eye on that as we jack it up. Alright, I had to take the alternator loose. I had to loosen it and push it in. Take that bolt out and put that little bolt in there. And then I just used the bolt that we had the turbo bracing. And I jacked it up a little just to get the load off of it. Now we'll take the motor mount bolts out. It's fighting me something good. Now, we have one of those transmission shields in there. And the oil pan, I mean, it likes that much clearing the crank, so it don't got to go up much. But it's hitting the transmission shield and it won't go up anymore. So I'm either going to have to drop the back of the transmission from the cross member, or take the 4 bolts out of the transmission that hold that shield in. Take the shield out. Alright, it's getting a lot more difficult than it should be. So what I did was I unbolted the transmission cross member and the transmission bolt, and I'm going to put a jack under it. The cross member's still in there. I'm going to put a jack in it, jack the transmission up, take the cross member out, and I did lower the motor back down, and I put the pan, I lined the pan back up before I lowered it back down to make sure I didn't get the pan wedged in there and, you know, kind of warp it or anything like that. But we'll do that, and then we got to be real careful, because we got to lift up on the motor and lower the transmission, lift on the motor, lower the transmission with the jack. And the reason why is because if you ain't too careful, that distributor will come back and hit the firewall and it'll break it. But also the drive shaft's still in it, and there's a drive shaft loop, so I don't know if y'all can see that or not. So hopefully we don't have to take that out. There's only about an inch for that drive shaft to hit that drive shaft loop, but we'll see. I'm gonna put the transmission under it with a block of wood. I use this block of wood right here, and jack it up, take the cross member out, and then carefully jack the motor up, lower the transmission, jack the motor up. I mean, at this point, it wouldn't take much just to pull the motor out of the car. So here's what I'm dealing with. Now it's hitting the drive shaft loop. And up here, this is the trans shield right here. And this is where it's hitting the body. Actually, not even hitting the body now. And it don't want to come out. Actually, I think I was closer earlier with the transmission up. It's got me on a downward angle. I think the motor will go up a little bit more. It's not hitting yet. Woo! Ain't gonna lie. Feeling whooped. So, it still don't want to come out. So I'm gonna lower the motor back down, hold the pan up in there, lower it back down. I'm gonna drop the transmission down. I'm gonna take the shield out. And then jack the motor back up and see if it'll come out then. It's close. Alright. Couldn't get the transmission low enough to get the transmission shield out, so I had to take the drive shaft out. And it still don't want to come out. Alright, transmission shield's out. I hate that thing. That thing has been nothing but trouble for us when we try to do anything with the transmission. Better off cutting your bell housing off and putting aftermarket bell housing on than putting one of those on, unless you've got an aftermarket tunnel, in my opinion. That thing's a pain. But anyway, now if it don't go up high enough now, I don't know what to do. Now my light's stuck. I'm having a good old day. Yes, it finally came out. You know what? There's no shiny stuff down in there. Look at this though. See those? That's Permatex. It's rubber. Like a gasket. The Permatex somehow. There's no shiny stuff. You can. There was still antifreeze on the very top of the oil because it don't drain it all out and where water got in there. But we'll clean all that out, and then actually I'm gonna fill it up with 8 quarts and see where it comes to, and then decide on where we're gonna put the oil drain, which I'm pretty sure it's gonna be right over here somewhere. You gotta keep in mind the stroke of your crank too, because on these 383s it comes close. Like, see, that's why that's there, so it can clear it. So you gotta keep that in mind. Probably put it in a wide area right here, probably about right there. I bet that's where it's gonna go. I don't think 7 quarts, 8 quarts is gonna go that high, but we'll see. All right, so there's 7 quarts, and then the filter holds, I don't know, half quart, depending on the size of the filter, I guess. But I think we're gonna put it right there. The oil level's about right there. So actually we could put it right there, but I'm gonna put it right here. I think that'd be perfect. Up between, right there. That's the game plan. Look, there's a piece of that stuck in the filter too. Just RTV selling it somehow. But we'll look up in here. Is my camera dirty? Let's wipe that off real quick. Holding the fan and holding the phone and getting all over your hands. So shiny. Just looking for any bluing. Rock the rods and mains. Back a little. It should rock a little. And you're looking for bluing, like a bluish color, because if you got a blue color, it means something's getting too hot. But everything looks really good. We'll wiggle those too. I can't hardly get my hand up there. But yeah, everything looks really good. Piston skirts, everything looks good. Cylinder walls, the ones that I can see anyway. Everything looks good. And it's all clean. Clean enough for me. All I found down in there was chunks of silicone. That was it. And it was really clean. That thing right there, that lip, there's a lip under there. Why did I cut the shit out of you? I cut myself twice wiping that out. I had to wipe it out again. There's where I drained it out. Some of that fluid got up in there and had transmission fluid in it, but I'll let all that drip down, and we're gonna go right in here somewhere. I think I'm gonna go right there just so I can get to the bolt easier there. Or we could go right there. This is where it starts going under the car. So yeah, let's go right there. Alright, there's our fitting. There's our hole saw. That's what we're gonna go with right there. That should do it. Drill bit made the hole a little bit bigger than I wanted to. I wanted it to catch on that ledge right there like that. But yeah, that'll be fine. It's kind of a perfect fit right there. That should work. We had Noah at Performance Works in Waco to weld that up for me. And then we'll slap it back in. I was hoping to do a little bit more today, like the axles, but we're going to have to save that for another video because that wore me out. I don't even want to admit how long it took me to do that. I mean, we had to take the motor mounts out. We had to take the transmission shield off, which took 4 bolts out of the transmission. We had to take the drive shaft out. We had to take the transmission cross member out. I was hoping I would just unbolt the pan and it would slide right out, but no. That was actually harder to take the pan out of that one. I've took the pan out of an LS1 F-body and I've took the pan out of an LT1 F-body, and neither time did I have that much trouble. Pretty much, it was that transmission shield that held me back the most, and then the drive shaft loop, the drive shaft hitting the drive shaft loop, that held me back. Once we got the transmission shield off and the drive shaft loop off and the motor mount bolts out, it went up high enough. And almost ran out of room there. Oh, you know what? I might have smashed them lines. The lines for the wastegates. I mean, because the distributors are up against that vacuum block. I mean, right up against it. I bet I've burnt those lines. Oh well, them lines are cheap. You just have to order some more. But other than that, everything else looks like it come up just fine with the motor. All the ground wires, the radiator lines, the catch can, the radiator hose. I left all that hooked. I did have to unhook the I did have to loosen the downpipe because it was hitting the fender, but I just loosened it and it stayed in there. So it's still in there, it's just loose. Actually, it's not in there no more. It's popped out. It's in at the bottom. But anyway, I'm gonna put some boards in there. I don't think this jack will stay up by itself, which sucks because I need it to stay there until I get the oil pan back. But I'm gonna put some boards down there between the motor mounts, so if it does come down, it'll land on them boards. And there's my boards between the motor mounts. I got one up here too. That way, if it comes down, it'll catch the board to catch between those motor mounts. And then I got that board right there, just in case any of the jacks bleed off. That one has bled off before. It ain't done that in a long time. I don't know what happened. It was bleeding off one day and then all of a sudden it quit. And that cherry picker, it's always bled off, but we did put a bunch of fluid in it recently, so hopefully that'll, which it won't matter. Them boards, I got boards like that on both sides. See how it is? That motor mount comes down, it'll catch on that motor mount right there. So I literally just got done pulling that pan out of the Trans Am. I was going to go take a shower and do a little bit of nothing the rest of the day. But before I did that, I messaged my buddy Noah at Performance Works. He does my welding and fabricating. And I said, I just sent him a picture of what I had there. And I wish I'd already talked to him yesterday at the drag strip. And said, just let me know whenever you can get to it. And he's like, bring it on up now, I'm welding. I guess he's working on Sunday, so we're heading on up there, get this welded in there, get it done. Alright, it's all welded up. I meant to take a video while I was there, but I forgot. I got a Wix filter, and we just run this Mobil 1 synthetic 10W30 in all our cars. It's like 6 o'clock. I started on this at like 9. And I am tired. I don't really like leaving that car on that cherry picker like that, but and the transmission on the jack like that, but them boards are in there. If it loses pressure, it'll catch it, and I'll just jack it back up tomorrow. But we'll work on it tomorrow. Tomorrow's Monday, and we'll work on it after work. But see y'all tomorrow. I thought I'd put the gasket on it first. That gasket, it don't fit. The grooves ain't dipping up on the back or something. It sticks way up. Maybe it will if I work with it some, but I figured out where them chunks of that's where the crank was hitting the gasket. I think my lens got dirty again. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Either Chris cut that out. Well, I think the crank is hitting it because they were chunks. The chunks were in there.